What's up, everybody? It's Nicholas John Dzinski. We're here today to talk books, a specific book from the Red Rising series. Iron Gold, Iran Gold. I loved it. Some people don't like it. That's what I've heard. Some people didn't like it. I really liked it. Sure. I think at the beginning it had a bit of a slow burn. You're getting reintroduced to some old characters and you're getting introduced to some new ones. Okay, so that does take time. Every character kind of has an origin story, even characters that we have known through the past 3 books. We're looking at a new version of Darrow right now, right? Like, he's 30. The rebellion is kind of concluded, in a sense. The Republic has formed, and it's been 10 years of not peace, relative peace, you know? There's always things looming in the background that Darrow is more aware of, seemingly, than the others in the story. Darrow's perspective, there's multiple perspectives in this book. That's the difference between now and the last trilogy. 4 different perspectives in Iron Gold. I think that's how it is moving forward. I just started Dark Age, so I'm not super sure. 4 perspectives in this new book, which is obviously different than the trilogy. We meet a couple new characters in Lyria and Ephraim, and 2 older ones, but we get to, relearn about Darrow, the new Darrow, and then we get to examine some of Lysander being a 20-year-old, which has been cool. People don't like Lysander. I don't really know why just yet. I have an idea, but I'm going to get into that a little bit later. Darrow's perspective. Kind of, for me, the weakest storyline, which does kind of make sense. Towards the end, it gets phenomenally better. But Darrow has a lot of confusion. He's doing some soul searching. When I turned 30, I was soul searching too. So that seems very real to Darrow. Like everything he built up until that point personally is kind of obsolete. They bred him, built him to be a warlord, and the Republic thinks they don't need a warlord anymore. What is a man to do? What's Darrow supposed to do? Everything he knows how to do is now obsolete, but in the back of his mind he knows that their enemies in the Rim and the Society and blah, 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 they're still active. They want revenge for what happened to their people. So Darrow has a mixed bag. He's a father, he's a husband, and he has duty, He's full of duty. He has, he just liberated all these people, and he doesn't want to just let them go ungoverned. So he's being pulled apart in a bunch of different ways. And for a character, I find that to be very interesting. He's in a very gray spot, no pun intended. For him, it's not so black and white. It's not obvious what his choices should be until circumstances force his hand in doing other things. So some of the new characters, Ephraim is a phenomenal character. I was listening to Pierce Brown talk about who his favorite perspective to write for was in this novel, and he said it was Ephraim, and that's pretty apparent when you're reading it. I just think Ephraim is such a interesting character. His backstory is, he's just a really good character. He's kind of a thief, former military. He's a gray. You don't get to really see a bunch of gray perspectives because they're kind of like the soldiers. They don't have a whole lot of personality within the first trilogy. They're kind of just footmen and militia. And Ephraim is like a thief. I don't know if I just said that, but he's a thief. He works in the underbellies of, seedy thievery. He moves in the shadows. He's that type of guy. His backstory is very impactful. He loses his husband, Trig, who we come across him and Holiday, his sister, I believe in Golden Sun. So that was cool to see those 2 books kind of connect in that way, have like an anchor character in Trig and Holiday. He has this ragtag group of seedy folk that help him, make his living via stealing. He's approached by the Duke of Hands, a pink, who's a leader. Yeah, right. No, the Duke of Hands was sick. And I loved Ephraim's character. I thought he was very interesting. Lyria, one of the other perspectives, I didn't really I understood that character, obviously. She just wasn't my favorite right off the rip. Her story was very depressing, which is kind of what Red Rising is. about, but it did kind of point to what was happening socially and economically, I guess you could say, to the people that were liberated because of the Republic of the Rising. It makes sense too. Her story makes sense in that, like, they free them from the mines. That sounds sick. But then what do you do after that? They're ungoverned. The Red Hand is like this gang, I suppose you could say, a militia gang that just like shoots all their, I don't know why they go to the camps and shoot people. I don't know what they want. I actually forget about that part. It's right at the beginning. It's just disgusting living conditions. They're not sure what to do. They have no skills to live in the real world above the mines. So the Red Hand comes, kills Lyria's like whole family except for Liam, her nephew, and they get rescued by the Telemanuses. I'm not really going to spoil how. They get rescued by the Telemanuses, and then she essentially lives with them, watching Sophocles, his red fox. So she goes from living in the mines to then living in encampments to then living in luxury with those gold elites, which on the surface sounds sick, but nobility is kind of suffering within this novel. The golds are always acting as if they don't suffer, but really I think they suffer the worst. I mean, their family members die. Yeah, they get to live in cool places, but like they're constantly at war. It's not great being a gold. So she gets thrusted into that world without any, again, she's stuck in a situation where she doesn't know how to survive in this new environment. She's used to mines and living underground, and now she's living amongst the nobles. What's she supposed to do? She has no clue. She has no education. So Lyria, man, I loved. The book was slow up until Ephraim put on his Felipe costume, and found Lyria and tricked her into wearing a necklace that ended up being like not a bomb, but like a EVP or whatever you call them. They like short circuit the necklace, like EVPs, shuts the whole, it's not a plane, it's a ship, cuts off the computer system, everything freezes, and there's gas in the chamber, and then everybody freezes, and the craft falls out of the sky. That was such a sick chapter. So it was cool seeing the perspectives come together and start interacting with one another, because that's when it started getting, the momentum started to build, and it was really, really good. I was kind of trying to get through it up until that point, to a certain degree. I loved Lysander's perspective. He gets captured because he was trying to help people, and him and Cassius get captured by the Ra family in the Rim. They're golds as well. They're kind of more like traditional by the book golds, which tickles Lysander's tickle nodule. He likes it, is what I should say. He likes that stuff. Okay, I get that. I think so. People hate Lysander because I think it's because he sided with the Rim. But doesn't that make sense? Like, the Rising killed his whole family, took him away from his home, and then they assume, with Cassius, he kind of assumes he has like a version of Stockholm syndrome. Like, no, dude, you killed his whole family. What do you want him to do? And then the golds, the Rim golds, they're just living the exact life he thought he was going to live. Of course he's going to side with them. That makes perfect sense to me. I'm not mad at Lysander for that. I get it. I would probably do the same thing if my captive, whom he loved as a brother, right? Which also makes sense to me. That's why I think Lysander's a great character, because he's gray. Like, he doesn't know. He's in a rock and a hard place situation. Yes, he loves Cassius, his brother. Not his real brother, but you get it. And then his way of life that he grew up having and wanted to have as an adult. He was going to be the sovereign at one point. And now what is he? He's the guy that gets captured. That sucks. So yeah, he's going to side with them. It makes sense. So I don't hate Lysander for that. Ultimately, Iron Gold was very good. I enjoyed the ending. Once it got rolling, it really got going. And maybe it was slow at the beginning, but that's what you got to do. You got to build the foundation. Building foundations probably isn't fun. I bet building a house is more fun than building foundation, but a foundation must be made. I give this book, Iron Gold, I'll give this a solid 4. 4.0. It was solid. I liked it. I think you'll like it too. Let me know in the comments if you liked it too. Book reviews are hard, huh, guys? If you watch this, thank you. I love you. More to come. Mwah.